So here we are, sailing away finally from the lovely Marquesas. What beautiful islands they are. Wonderful. Goodbye, Ua Pou. Good to know you. Wonderful island. Wonderful, absolutely amazing. Definitely worth seeing again. And if you haven't seen it, it's definitely worth seeing and spending time here. So now it's off to the Tuamotus, 4 to 5 days. Starting from now, just change course. So we say goodbye to Ua Pou and get underway, and immediately we turned off the engine and got ourselves sailing away from the island. I felt myself relaxing and feeling so much better and enjoying being under sail and off on a long passage. It's not that long, in fact, 4 to 5 days, but it just feels so nice to be out at sea in very pleasant conditions. A little bit rolly. The swell is about 3 meters, but other than that, very nice evening coming. It's just on 4, so we've been under sail now for just over half an hour. Turned off the engine about 40 minutes ago, and sailing the next 4 or 5 days. Fantastic. I'm really looking forward to it. The overnight rain cleared away around dawn, and the skies have completely cleared now. Almost no cloud, just a little bit on the horizon, but the seas are still well up. They're still rolling us about quite a lot. There's a big one coming now, and then down we go, and then there's another one coming, pretty big, and also quite close, which is why it makes it so uncomfortable. They should lie down as the wind eases. The seas should die, but they always take a day or so later to do that. In the meantime, here they come rolling in, quite big ones. One result of last night's strong seas and conditions, with the seas washing the deck regularly, is this enormous flying fish. We're definitely going to have fish today, fresh fish today. Oh, this is one really big flying fish. He's fully grown. Normally when they come on board they're a lot smaller, and the swell just made him roll over there. Yeah, he's a good sized fish for a meal. Fish on the menu. Pretty impressive sunrise, and the rough seas are continuing. We've had a pretty rough night, a rough ride so far. 3 meter seas or more, throwing us around a lot. Time for coffee, I think. It's Wednesday midday. I just turned off the generator and heard a pump going, and looks as though my freshwater pump has drained the tanks. I have nothing in the tanks now. All the water I have seems to be down here in the bilge, so that's really bad news, because I'm relying on the tank water, which had been filled from my water maker, which was working fine. So I'm just wondering quite what I can do. I'm going to take some of this water out and put it in the bottles that I've been using as drinking water, on the basis that my tanks were full. I didn't read I could use the drinking water out of the bottles. Anyway, so I now have to have a look and see what I've got by way of fresh water in the bottles. Not much, I don't think. So most of it's down here. I was pretty annoyed to find suddenly that my instruments down by the chart table had gone again, as they had on my way over from Mexico to the Marquesas, just nothing down below repeating what was up on top. So not a major item, but just very frustrating to have that happen again. Well, we have to say that this is not the most pleasant of section of the journey at the moment. We're still banging and threshing around a lot. We had overnight rain and we're just leaving, I think, the band of cloud that gave the rain overnight. The sky's clearing a little bit. It's certainly looking a lot bluer to the south. But it is still, the seas are still so big and really throwing us around, tossing us about on a regular basis. They're quite close still. And that is always the problem. When they're that close, it makes it that much more rough. So we're getting about, well, apparent wind is well over 20. And I'm just hoping that maybe once we get out of this band of cloud, then maybe things might settle down a little bit. The wind has also veered a bit, so it's more to the southeast. It was more east-southeast a day or so back. So yeah, so I think it's about 9:30 in the morning, and I'm just waiting for that sunshine to come when we get out of this band of cloud. Yeah, we're really rolling around here a lot, getting tossed about. Not very pleasant at the moment. Having to move about very carefully. Seas are washing the deck a lot and coming over the windows here. But that's what we're heading into, so I'm hoping that will allow things to settle down a bit more. For the blue sky, sunshine would be nice, and slightly less wind would be even better. So here we have our path down to the Tuamotus from the Marquesas. So here we are, soon after dawn, and I'm just trying to give a picture of what it's like, what the seas are like on the port side of the boat there, as we're heading down to the Tuamotus. Pretty rough seas, always very difficult to get a really good impression of that. And here they are right by the boat, soon after dawn. And here we are, later the same day, nearing sunset, under a lovely blue sky for a change, and with full Genoa, and really having a very good sail. But still the problem with these seas, they're around 8 seconds apart, which is pretty close, and because they're about 3 meters still, really tossing the boat around a lot. So very careful moving around to stay safe, but very good to make the good speed. Nearing sunset. Slowly watching the sun going down. Very pleasant, very relaxing. Dawn is just breaking on Friday, 14th of July, 14 juillet. The French are celebrating here today and over the weekend. So with the light that's coming up, I can see what's going on. So we've slowed right down. We're doing just 5 knots roughly. So just over. So we're going to let out the second reef that we've had on all this time. It's done good work, and speed up a bit. Seas have lain down quite a bit, and dawn is coming up quite nicely. We'll have a look at that now. A lot more gently than we have been up to now. So things are calming down. The wind speed I'm seeing is about 11 knots, so it's come way down from the just over 20 that we were getting at times at the beginning. So I'm going to let out that second reef and we'll speed up. Well, that's unfortunate. I've just gone to the mast to have a look and see why the main wouldn't go up any further, and it turns out that not only is the first reef line jammed inside the boom, which is the reason why I can't release, well, I can release the first reef when the wind dies down maybe, but the third reef line is also jammed inside the boom, and I can only raise the main so much. So I'll see whether I think we can make do with that. There's enough more there, and but that's something else to try and work out when I get to the Tuamotus finally. Anyway, so here's the dawn in the meantime. Well, it's 6 o'clock on Friday morning, 14 juillet, and I'm a little bit upset because the main just will not rise far enough to let the second reef out, let alone the first reef that I was thinking I would let go as well quite soon, because the wind has died right down to 10 knots on the beam, and the seas have lain down as well, which is rather nice. It's a lot more comfortable. But as you can see, we're only making around 5 knots, and we could do with a bit more main up. The third reef line seems now to have got jammed inside the boom, along with that first reef line that's been jammed for some time, and that line must have now somehow got in the way of the third reef being released. So I've got the main part of the way up from releasing the second reef, but not as far up as it should be, and that's really going to slow us down because the wind is going to die down almost to nothing. We've only got 108 miles to the first waypoint, and I think it's about another 40 after that, so less than 140 miles to go. So theoretically we should make that by this time tomorrow. Well, a little bit later now, of course, because we've lost speed. But if I could get the main right up, then we'd get up speed and go that much further. Anyway, we're stuck with what we've got. We're going to have to go along at this speed and less as the wind dies, and eventually we're going to have to end up motor sailing. I will be checking the fuel level in a moment just to see how much fuel we've got, because we don't have that much, but probably enough to get us in. So that's the morning's news. Not too happy. It's not a disaster or a crisis, but just means we're going to be very slow getting into our anchorage at Tahanea tomorrow. Well, I just double-checked that distance to go. We've got 143 miles to go, so we should get in sometime tomorrow, Saturday, but it will be later than I had hoped. Well, this is a bit more like it. We're having a beautiful sail, most of the morning, in fact. Clear blue sky, well, not quite clear, but a few flat clouds in the distance. Blue sky overhead. Wind is only about 11 knots or so on the beam, but that's giving us a lovely sail. We're making around 5.5 to 6 knots, despite the mainsail problem, in that I can't properly raise it. I can't hoist it all the way as I would have liked to. But hopefully I'll sort that out. I'll have a look at that when I get in. We've only got just over 70 miles to go to our waypoint. No, I think that's the total actually. 70 miles is the total. We have a waypoint that I've put in between two atolls. Obviously I don't want to go anywhere near them, which are just 35 miles from my final atoll waypoint, landfall. So we should be there tomorrow, and in fact we don't really want to go too fast, because if we did we might end up arriving in the dark, and much as I've been told the pass into the atoll is very easy, it's wide, no problems, any state of tide and so on and so forth, it's always nice to be able to see exactly what's happening. And anyway, in the daylight you can see where, if there are any coral heads. So yeah, anyway, so I'm just having a rather late coffee and really enjoying this. We're just bouncing about gently in the slight swell, none of us being tossed about, crash, bang. Yeah, it's a lot more pleasant today, so that's really good. Running the water maker while I run the generator, so it's good to see a little dribble of water. It's initially it's just for washing with, but when the salinity is okay I can store it in some bottles for drinking. I'm not that critical. I do have some water, and the swell just made it move out of the way. Let's put it back again. There is a bit of swell, so we are moving a little bit from time to time, and every now and then a bigger one comes along, of course, just to make things more difficult, but I'm trying to hold this in place. So we're getting water, that's good. The only problem is where to stow it. Here we go with the start of a very, very quick, healthy, good meal for 2 nights probably. So yeah, I'll be adding in some dehydrated peppers and some cauliflower and broccoli maybe. So all in all it'll make a good meal, and definitely enough for 2 nights, if not more. I should have added there'll be some sardines for starters. Very healthy. So here we have the sun setting on the evening of Friday the 14th of July, 14 juillet, and we're looking forward to being at anchor by this time tomorrow. We're making surprisingly good speed. I expected the wind to have died down a lot more over today, and tomorrow the same, but we've actually got getting on for 11-12 knots of wind, and we're making a good speed, so I just hope that we don't have a problem. I'd like to get in daylight, but if I'm not careful I might have to slow down and put in the genoa, slow us down a bit, so as not to get in too early in the dark. Anyway, a lovely sunset and very pleasant day today. It's been really nice, and I'm also running the water maker, so I'm getting some water, so that's good. Just watching the sun disappear over the horizon. It's only pretty big, in fact. The view the other way. we are around sunset on Friday evening. We've got 46 miles or so to go to our first waypoint, and then another 35, so that's making just around the 80 miles mark. So that should get us through to daylight tomorrow, no problem, middle of the day. Okay, because it's presently, we had on 16 to 0300, we get 1900, take off 10, we get 9 o'clock in the morning. We expect roughly to get to Tahanea. Venus shining brightly above the horizon. Well, we've got 76 miles more to go to get to our landfall, and that will take us, if we divide by 5, that gives us, what, 15? So 15 hours of travel, maybe a bit less. So 15 plus 4, that gives 19, take off 10, 9 o'clock in the morning. It's very roughly, I mean, even if we get there sooner, it's sunrise at around 6 in the morning, so and any time after 9 of course is not a problem. So that's what the situation is at the moment. Just after sunset on Friday the 14th of July. I thought I'd try adding in some freeze-dried peppers, mixed bell peppers, straight into the hot liquid to see how that works. Normally I would put them in cold water for about half an hour, stirring constantly, and that works fine. So I'm just trying to see whether this shortcut will work or not. There they are, all in with the chicken and chickpeas and tomatoes. I would normally fry some onions and add in, but I haven't done tonight, forgot about it. But we'll see how that works out. Well, it's 2:30 roughly in the morning, and it's absolutely pitch black outside. I mean, there's no moon, but even if there were, there'd be nothing to see. There are no lights, nothing to show that I'm rounding this atoll of Katiu. I've just changed course, in fact, expecting that I might have had a problem with the wind, but in fact the sails are fine. We're still making a reasonable speed. With the distance to go now of just over 36 miles to the reef entrance on Tahanea, that means that we're actually making about 4.5 to 5 knots. So that's going to be a good 7 hours, which means that I'll be getting not too close at dawn, and I'll be approaching in good light. So that's good news. And yeah, it's always a worry when you're getting close to land, you know, just to make sure, absolutely sure that everything is okay. I might get another little bit of nap every now and then, but for 7 hours, there's a good long distance between Katiu, the atoll we're rounding now, and the one we're headed for. So I should be able to get a little bit of sleep in between when it's safe to do that, setting an alarm on a couple of things maybe to make sure it goes off and wakes me up to check that everything's okay. So yeah, Tahanea, by mid-morning we should be looking for where to anchor. As I said, always a concern when you're getting close to land, and rounding that atoll to make absolutely sure that we're fine. But we're in deep, deep water, too deep for anything to show. So very deep water in between these atolls. They're basically volcanic peaks sticking up close to the ocean surface. Of course, there are plenty of stars above, very bright. There can't be many clouds around, if there are any at all. But I'm really surprised. There was a thin crescent moon recently, but it must have been waning, not waxing, because there's absolutely nothing at the moment, no sign of any moon. I've not seen anything all night. Anyway, but everything's looking fine, so I think I can relax for the time being. It's really good. I did wonder whether I'd be okay. We're so close hauled to the wind that I'm really quite surprised when I changed course, which I did very gradually, thinking I might have to change my planned route. But no, the wind, although it's really, really on the nose, is holding, the sails are holding fine. So that's really good to see. Okay, so we'll relax now until daylight, until dawn, and see how things are going then. Well, here we are with dawn breaking over the Tuamotus, but of course they're so low lying that all you see is water. Water, water everywhere. Under the cloud back there is an atoll, but you can't see anything, of course. There's where we are. We're midway between Ua and Tahanea, and about 19 miles to go to the entrance there, so it's not too surprising we can't see much but water. But of course, with GPS and charts, these are made so much less dangerous. These used to be where people would wreck regularly, because you just can't see where you are, and there's such shallow water in a lot of places. So there's our landfall, but you can't see a thing. Not a thing. When we get closer, maybe. So here's a view of our poor mainsail. I've raised it as much as I can. Obviously not very efficient, because that third reef line being jammed in the boom won't allow the main to be raised any higher. So that's really bad news, but we seem to be making reasonable speed despite that. But it just looks a rather sorry looking mainsail there. So here's where we're headed into, the atoll of Tahanea, and here we see the pass in more detail. Quite wide open, quite an easy one to get through. So we're still in very, very deep water, over 1,000 feet deep. And the wind has died down to, that's the apparent wind, so it's higher than the actual wind, showing 10 knots, just under 10 knots. What the sails are feeling is 10 knots, but it's probably more like 5 or 6 knots, because we have to add in the speed of the boat, which is presently about 4.5. So pretty light wind. We've slowed right down to 4 knots. And the sun is clearly trying to rise over there, but being behind that small mass of grey cloud, which is actually over an atoll, it's not being seen. We're not getting much of a sunrise today, just the light. the daylight. Just gone 6 o'clock local time. And you don't have to be much of a mathematician to do the arithmetic. 18 miles to go still, and at about 4 knots, getting less, we're going to take over 4 hours to make our landfall in Tahanea. I wonder if they're getting rain there. Could be. Looking across the sky to the other side as we come down towards Tahanea, looks like it's going to be a rather nice day. Well, we're 4 miles off and I'm finally seeing a hint of land. Just there. Very, very low, of course, very low. Not too easy to see, it's so low. It's a very pleasant day, we're just ambling along at 4.5 knots. Pleasant wind, almost a flat sea, very nice. I'm thinking when I get to about a mile off, I'll down the sails, take in the sails completely and just go in under motor. It'll be a lot more secure feeling, you know, more flexibility, because I have no idea. I have an idea where I'm going to go to try to anchor, but I'll be looking out for coral heads and who knows what, so being under motor will be a lot easier. Well, I just went to get the anchor ready, took the pin out, lowered it very, very slightly so it's ready to drop. And next thing is, when we get close enough, is to deal with the sails, get the engine on and deal with the sails. So here we are on our last day coming into the Tuamotus and having a lovely sail. This is wonderful. I expected to have to motor the last day possibly, and here we are having a beautiful sail. Really lovely in almost calm conditions. The wind's pretty light, 8 or 9 knots, and that's apparent, so it'll be a bit less than that. We're making just under 4 knots at the moment, 3.7 over the ground. 3.8, which is fine, and once I get close enough I'll start the engine, of course, make sure that's working before I take down the sails. But lovely, lovely sailing, beautiful, really enjoying this. Had my morning coffee, feeling pretty relaxed, although, well, that's not quite true actually, because coming into an unknown landfall is hardly relaxing, but I am enjoying the sailing, and I have a pretty good idea where I'm going to go, so hopefully if the engine starts off okay, we'll be fine. Look at the beautiful colour of that water, absolutely beautiful. I just wanted to show the lovely colour of the water in the tropics when the sun's shining, beautiful, beautiful greeny blue, absolutely wonderful. Lovely gentle sail. Well, that's the Genoa pretty well furled in. We just finished that off, and then we'll get the main in as well. So we're a couple of miles off, and I'm just being careful. Nothing like being careful. Okay, next job of course is to round up and drop the main. It's always nice to hear the engine starting up when you want it to. The last thing you want is not to have the engine available when you need it. The halyard all ready down below, so it should run nice and quickly to drop the main. Well, I just found a little flying fish caught down here. Must have been there for quite a time. He's well and truly dried out. Okay, so that's the main dropped. Good enough for the moment. So now we get under motor and get into the anchorage. Here we are. We've got sails down, under motor, heading. We're just 1.5 miles off. But at least I'm feeling satisfied that everything's under control, and we can come in. Then we'll move on to turn around to starboard to the anchorage just on that side of this main entrance. This is the main eastern entrance to Tahanea. Well, that's good. Just got the rest of the mainsail down and the halyard tied off for the moment, ready for when we get in. Not long now. Half a mile off the entrance now, so almost there. Trying to go into the, make sure we're in the deep water. We've got still in, not in soundings, we're still in very, very deep water. Because the depth is showing nothing at the moment, just dash, dash, dash. So obviously this goes down very quickly to deep water from the atoll itself. So there's the entrance that we're headed to. Finally, we've got some soundings, 65 feet there, so we'll slow down and we'll go around coming through the entrance now. Well, wouldn't you believe it, there I was going to set the anchor, drop the anchor, and the windlass has stopped working. So I had to hurriedly release the gypsy and drop it under gravity, but I can't get it up at the moment. And it turns out that I'm right next door to a boat that I know that left from Hakahau when I did, Onero, Paul and Liz on Onero. So I'm in company here. Lovely, lovely day. I'm going to relax. I'm just going to take the top off the where the chain goes down into the chain locker to see whether there's a problem there. But you know, we've got the anchor well set. It's got a lot of chain down, so I don't think we have a problem with moving anyway. Lovely view of the anchorage here, just inside the reef, the atoll here. Nice refreshing breeze as well. Beautiful colour of the water. There we go. Well, the nice thing about having some friends nearby was that I got a lift in a dinghy and I was able to get photos of Nereida, and with a shower and the sun we had this marvellous rainbow effect and some wonderful sunsets of course as well, and it got very calm. The boat was not rocking about, it was very peaceful, and by the boat in fact quite a few fish seem to have adopted Nereida, along with a black-tipped reef shark, which I'm told are no problem, nothing to worry about. I always question that, but I'm told that they're perfectly fine. So it's been a very pleasant first few days relaxing in Tahanea in the Tuamotus. Yeah, here I am having my coffee off the stern of the boat. Very, very pleasant time. And the flat calm sea, so different from the rough seas we had on the way down. And of course some lovely sunsets to see as well. Not a lot of wind today, but some spectacular reflections. Tahanea atoll. So it was very, very pleasant to see the beautiful sunsets and the calm water, and really enjoy relaxing, having now got to the Tuamotus from the Marquesas.